Kira was 12 years old when the Vectari burned her world to ash. She remembered the sky turning orange, then red, then black. She remembered her mother pushing her into the underground shelter, promising to come back. Her mother never came back. Nobody came back. When Kira finally crawled out 3 days later, her home planet of New Haven was nothing but smoke and cinder. The Vectari were conquerors. They had swept across the galaxy for 10,000 years, burning any species that resisted their rule. They called their method purification. They would arrive at a planet, demand complete surrender, and if any resistance appeared, they would burn the entire world. Then they would move to the next one. Humanity had been expanding into space for only 300 years. They were young. They were small. They had only 47 colony worlds spread across a tiny corner of the galaxy. The Vectari had millions. When the Vectari came to human space, they expected easy prey. They expected surrender. They did not expect Kira. The refugee ships carried survivors from New Haven to the nearest human world, a rocky planet called Ashford. Kira sat alone in the corner of the crowded ship, not crying, not speaking. She was thinking. She was always thinking. Even before the attack, her teachers had called her a genius. She could solve problems that adults could not understand. She could see patterns where others saw chaos. Now she looked at the problem in front of her. The Vectari were strong. They had better ships, better weapons, and more soldiers than humanity could ever match. But as Kira sat on that refugee ship, watching the stars pass by, she noticed something. The Vectari always attacked in the same way. They always moved in the same patterns. They were predictable. Years passed. Kira grew up on Ashford, living in the cramped refugee camps that covered the planet. She studied everything she could find about the Vectari. She learned their language, their history, their military tactics. She built small machines from scrap metal and broken electronics. She taught herself to program computers. By the time she was 16, she had built her first avatar. The avatar was a robot, but not like any robot humans had made before. It was connected directly to Kira's mind through a neural link she had designed herself. When she wore the special helmet, she could see through the avatar's eyes, move its body, feel what it touched. It was like having a second body, one made of metal and wire. At first, she used the avatar to help repair ships in the refugee camp. The robot could go places too dangerous for humans. It could lift heavy objects and work for hours without rest. People started to notice the orphan girl and her strange machine. A man named Commander James Reed noticed her too. He was one of the leaders of what remained of humanity's military. The war against the Vectari was going badly. 7 more human worlds had been burned in the years since New Haven. Humanity was losing, and everyone knew it. Reed came to the refugee camp one day, looking tired and old. He found Kira in her small workshop, surrounded by wires and screens. "I heard about you," he said. "They say you're building robots that can think." "They can't think," Kira said without looking up from her work. "I think for them, but I've been studying the Vectari. I know how to beat them." Reed laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "Millions of Vectari ships against our few thousand. How do you beat that?" Kira finally looked at him. Her eyes were serious, much too serious for someone so young. "You don't fight their strength. You fight their weakness. The Vectari are old. They haven't changed their tactics in thousands of years because they've never needed to. They're not stupid, but they're rigid, predictable, and they've never fought anyone who could adapt faster than them." She showed him her plans. She had designed a new kind of avatar, one that could be mass-produced quickly and cheaply. More importantly, she had designed a network that would let hundreds of human pilots control thousands of avatars at once, all working together in perfect coordination. "We can't match them ship for ship," Kira explained. "But if we're smarter, if we're faster, if we can change our tactics in the middle of battle while they're still following their old patterns, We might have a chance. Reed was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Come with me. I want you to meet some people." Kira was 17 when she became the youngest strategist in human military history. Some of the older officers didn't like taking orders from a teenager. But after she predicted a Vektari attack 3 days before it happened and helped save the planet Meridian, they stopped complaining. She built her avatar army. She trained pilots from every human world. She created a command center on a hidden space station, where she could coordinate battles across multiple star systems at once. The first major victory came at a Cinder world called Prometheus. The Vektari had burned it decades ago, before humans even arrived in this part of space. They thought it was worthless, just another dead rock. They didn't know that Kira had hidden 1,000 avatars beneath its ash-covered surface. When a Vektari fleet passed by Prometheus on their way to attack the human colony of New Berlin, Kira's avatars rose from the ground. They launched into space on hidden rockets, attacking the Vektari ships from behind. At the same time, human ships arrived from New Berlin, catching the Vektari between two forces. It was the first time in recorded history that a Vektari fleet had been destroyed completely. The news spread across human space like fire. For the first time, people dared to hope. But Kira knew this was just the beginning. She stood in her command center, watching reports come in from across the galaxy. The Vektari were already sending more ships. They were angry now, and they were coming in greater numbers. "They'll burn everything," said Commander Reed, standing beside her. "They'll send so many ships that we can't possibly stop them all." Kira nodded. "That's what I'm counting on." Reed looked at her, confused. "The Vektari have controlled this galaxy for 10,000 years," Kira said. "They've burned hundreds of species into extinction, but they've never faced a real challenge. They don't know what to do when someone fights back and wins. Right now, they're angry. Angry people make mistakes." She pointed to the star map in front of them, showing the positions of Vektari fleets across human space. "They're spreading out too much," she continued. "They want to attack all our worlds at once, to crush us completely. But that means their forces are thin. If we hit them at the right places, at the right times, we can win battles we shouldn't be able to win." Reed shook his head slowly. "You're not just trying to defend our worlds. You're trying to make them afraid of us." Kira smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Fear is a weapon, Commander. The Vektari have used it against everyone they've conquered. It's time someone used it against them." She sent the orders. Across human space, Avatar armies began to move. The resistance was rising from the Cinder worlds, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war continued for 5 years. Kira's strategies worked better than anyone had hoped. Human forces won battle after battle, not because they were stronger, but because they were unpredictable. Kira would attack where the Vektari expected retreat. She would retreat when they expected attack. She used the burned Cinder worlds as hiding places, knowing the Vektari never paid attention to planets they had already destroyed. The Avatar network grew. At its peak, Kira could control 10,000 robots spread across 50 star systems, all at once. She barely slept anymore. She lived in her command center, connected to the network for days at a time, seeing through thousands of electronic eyes. Her fame spread beyond human space. Other species, ones that had hidden from the Vektari for centuries, began to whisper about the human girl who fought back. Some of them started to fight too. The Krellians were the first to join. They were small, insect-like beings who had lived in underground tunnels since the Vektari burned their homeworld 3,000 years ago. They contacted Kira through secret channels, offering their help. "We have watched you," their leader said through the communication screen. "We have watched you take the dead worlds and give them purpose. We want to help." Kira accepted. She shared her avatar technology with the Krellians. They modified it, improved it, made versions suited to their own bodies and minds. Within a year, Krellian avatars were fighting alongside human ones. Then came the Asi, a species of tall, silent beings who communicated through color changes in their skin. Then the Ven, who were so old they remembered when the Vektari first rose to power. Species that had given up hope for thousands of years began to believe again. The alliance grew. Kira found herself leading not just humans, but a coalition of dozens of species. She didn't ask for this responsibility. She didn't want it. But there was no one else who could see the patterns she saw, who could coordinate so many different forces across such vast distances. The Vektari responded with increasing brutality. They burned more worlds. They sent larger fleets. They started using weapons they had not needed for millennia, terrible devices that could shatter moons and poison suns. On her 22nd birthday, Kira watched from her command center as the Vektari destroyed the planet Ashford. The refugee camp where she had grown up, the workshop where she had built her first avatar, the people who had given her shelter when she had nothing, all gone in a flash of fire. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling something cold and hard settle into her chest. Commander Reed found her there hours later. He was older now, his hair gray and his face lined with worry. He had been her friend and mentor for years. He knew her better than anyone. "They're trying to break you," he said quietly. "I know," Kira replied. "Is it working?" Kira turned to look at him. Her eyes were empty, but her voice was steady. "No, but I'm done playing defense. It's time to end this." She'd have been working on a plan for years, a plan so ambitious that she had never shared it with anyone. The Vektari had a homeworld, a planet called Vector Prime at the center of their empire. It was the most defended place in the galaxy. No enemy had ever come within 1,000 light years of it. Kira was going to attack it. The plan required everything. Every ship, every avatar, every ally. It required tricks and distractions across the entire galaxy. It required years of preparation. It required Kira to push herself harder than she ever had before, to control more avatars across greater distances than anyone thought possible. It required her to burn. The final battle began on a Tuesday. Kira connected to the network and felt her mind expand outward, touching millions of machines across hundreds of star systems. Alliance forces attacked Vektari positions everywhere at once, creating chaos and confusion. The Vektari responded exactly as Kira predicted, pulling ships from their core territories to defend their outer colonies. And while they were distracted, Kira's main force slipped through a gap in their defenses and headed straight for Vector Prime. The battle lasted for 3 days. Kira didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't disconnect from the network for even a moment. She fought through waves of Vektari ships, lost thousands of avatars, and kept pushing forward. On the 3rd day, her forces reached Vector Prime. The planet was huge and ancient, covered in massive cities and defensive platforms. But Kira wasn't trying to conquer it. She just needed to deliver a message. She landed a single avatar in the central plaza of the Vektari capital, right in front of their governing council. The Vektari soldiers surrounded it, weapons raised, but they didn't shoot. They were too shocked. No enemy had ever stood on Vektari Prime before. Through the avatar, Kira spoke. "My name is Kira of New Haven," she said. Her voice was broadcast across the entire planet. "You burned my world when I was 12 years old. You have burned hundreds of worlds, killed trillions of beings, spread fear across the galaxy for 10,000 years. But today, I stand on your homeworld, and you cannot stop me." She paused, letting the words sink in. "This war is over. You can keep fighting, and we will keep beating you. We will take your colonies one by one. We will free the species you have enslaved. We will burn your fleets just as you burned our worlds. Or you can stop. You can choose peace. The decision is yours." The Vektari Council stared at the avatar. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the oldest member of the council, a being who had lived for 2,000 years and had never known defeat, lowered his weapon. "We will talk," he said. The war did not end that day. The negotiations took years. There were setbacks and betrayals and moments when everything almost fell apart. But eventually, finally, a treaty was signed. Kira watched the signing ceremony through her avatar, standing in a room full of beings from 100 different species. She was 28 years old now, tired beyond measure, her body weak from years of pushing herself too hard. After the ceremony, she disconnected from the network for the last time. She walked out of her command center and into the sunlight of a world that had never been burned. A little girl ran up to her, holding a toy robot that looked like one of Kira's avatars. "Are you really her?" the girl asked. "Are you really the one who saved everyone?" Kira knelt down to look at the girl. "I didn't save everyone," she said honestly. "A lot of people fought very hard. A lot of people didn't make it. But you led them," the girl insisted. "You made them believe we could win." Kira smiled. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself in years. "Maybe. But do you want to know a secret?" The girl nodded eagerly. "I was just like you once," Kira said. "Just a kid who lost everything. I didn't have any special powers. I just refused to give up. And that's something anyone can do." She stood up and looked at the sky, watching ships fly overhead. Ships from 100 different worlds, all working together, all at peace. Humanity was still young. They were still small. But they had shown the galaxy something important. They had shown that hope could rise from ash, that the weak could defeat the strong, that even after everything burned, something new could grow. The Cinder worlds were no longer just reminders of destruction. They were monuments to survival. And across the galaxy, species who had hidden in fear for thousands of years were finally learning to stand in the light. Kira walked away from the ceremony, disappearing into the crowd. She didn't want statues or celebrations. She just wanted to rest, to find some quiet place where she could finally sleep without dreaming of fire. But she knew, deep in her heart, that if the galaxy ever needed her again, she would answer. Because that was what humans did. They fought. They hoped. They never gave up. And that made them the most dangerous species in the universe.